guys, Preacher 357 here. I recently posted a video about my Ruger LCP2, how I repaired the issue that I had with the magazine dropping out under recoil, and I repaired it by buying an aftermarket spring for the magazine release. And I bought it from a company called M-Carbo or M-Carbo, I think it's M-Carbo. But they make springs and some other things for different guns. And while I was on their website looking at this spring, this extra power spring for the mag release for my LCP to solve that problem, I ran across a spring kit that they had for another gun. And so I thought I would just go ahead and pick that one up while I was buying the one for the LCP. And so I picked up this spring kit right here, which is for the SCCY CPX2 or the CPX1. They're the same gun. The CPX1 has a safety, and the CPX2, you see here, does not have a safety. That's the only difference between the two of them. I've had this gun for, I'm going to say going on 7 years, somewhere around there. Back around that time frame, 2015 or so, 14, 15, there was a big media campaign, it seemed like, where you were seeing the SCCY CPX2s and the CPX1s on a lot of YouTube channels, and there was a lot of publicity surrounding them. You know, and they were billed as a American-made gun, reasonable price, but really, really well made, and there was a lot of hype that was going on about the gun. And generally, I'm not someone who gravitates toward budget firearms. That's just not something that appeals to me. I'm someone who enjoys firearms, and I buy them and shoot them for pleasure as much as anything. But, you know, even as someone who has a concealed carry permit, I want a gun that I feel confident with. And, you know, anytime that you're buying a budget firearm, there is a reason why they cost less. You know, let's be honest, there's a reason why they're sold for a lesser price. Either they're made overseas or they're made with cheaper parts of some sort. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, and there are obviously those who are on a tight budget and have to go that route in order to have something to defend themselves with, and they're not all bad either. I'm not trying to say that either, but it's just not something I've gravitated to. And so I kept hearing all this hype about the SCCY CPX2, and I started thinking, you know, I wouldn't mind picking up one of those. They look interesting. I like double action revolvers, so the fact it was a double action semi-auto was somewhat appealing to me. I liked double action single actions or double action revolvers and double action semi-autos even. And so I said, well, you know, that might be interesting, you know. And so I really wasn't looking at it so much as a budget gun. It's just something that might be interesting. And then I ran across one at a gun show down around Memphis about 7 years ago or so that was on sale for like, $199, which is, you know, cheap. I just couldn't hardly pass it up because it's something that I thought might be interesting. So I said, well, I'll pick this gun up. And so I did. Brought it home, took it out to the range, had lots of failures to feed, had lots of issues, thought, well, it's just a break-in period. So I continued shooting it. It got a little bit better, but I was still having some issues with the gun. I called up SCCY, because their customer service had a lifetime warranty and all of that on it. And I believe the first time they sent me a brand new slide, I believe. I believe that's what happened the first time. They just sent me a replacement slide, and I sent the old slide back. And that had a different barrel, different ejector, everything. And that seemed to solve a lot of the problems. But I was still having some issues with failures to extract or eject. Those kinds of issues that I was running into. And finally, I figured out that the gun just really liked hot ammo. It didn't like the weak range ammo. It would always feed flawlessly with self-defense ammo, which is usually hotter. And even some of the hotter ball ammo that I was shooting through it liked fairly well. The stuff that came from Europe, for example, the Fiocchi And at the time, Walmart carried a brand called Perfecta, and the Perfecta actually was a fairly hot practice round. And it fed the Perfecta perfectly. You know, no pun intended there. But I bought a lot of that ammo, and it was cheap. It was readily available, and so I always had it on hand. So I started shooting that, and I really liked the gun. I really grew to enjoy that gun, and I found that it was really light. It was really easy to carry, and so for a little while I even carried it some. Not all the time. Smitty was obviously my number one, but I would throw it on my waistband every now and then. I had a Kydex holster for it. But then I ran into some other issues. And I think all in all, pretty much every part of this gun ended up being replaced. Now, over the time frame when I was shooting this gun and carrying it on occasions, I probably put between 3,000 and 4,000 rounds down the pipe. And in that time, I had to have the entire slide replaced first, including the extractor. I also ran into a problem where the firing pin, the tip of the firing pin broke off. I went to the range one day and it was perfectly fine, and I shot it. Everything was great. And I'd actually been carrying it a couple of days later, and I went to the range with it one day at lunch, I believe it was. Pulled it out, went to shoot a few rounds, and nothing happened. Just a click with nothing. Turns out the firing pin, the tip had broken off at the last range session, apparently. So I didn't know anything about that, and that's obviously worrisome when you pull your gun out thinking it's going to work and it's the gun you've been carrying, and you find out it wouldn't have saved your life if you needed it. That was kind of worrisome. I also had the ejector broke off of it. I started noticing it was just slinging brass everywhere. It was still working, you know. The ejector broke off, but it was still ejecting the rounds. They were just going everywhere. I also had the trigger bar broke on it. Trying to think of some other things that I know there was something else. Oh yeah, the roll pins all started falling out of it every time I'd shoot it. So they sent me the oversized roll pins to go in the gun. So there was that as well. So I've had a lot of different issues. And then finally, the straw that finally just kind of broke the camel's back when I just gave up on it. Because I really did like the gun, and so I was trying my best to salvage something from it, because I actually did like the gun. Liked a lot about it. And finally, the trigger got where it wouldn't reset. And the trigger reset spring had gotten too weak and wouldn't reset the trigger all the time. You'd have to push it back with your finger. Sometimes it would reset, sometimes it wouldn't. And I would stretch the spring back out, and it would work for a little bit, and then it would start doing the same thing again. And that was around the time we moved out to where we live now. And I think I might have shot this gun on this range one time. And that's been probably 6 years. And it's just been in the safe and hasn't been touched. So here they've been talking about releasing a new gun called the DVG-1, which is a striker-fired gun. I said, well, you know, that'd be interesting to compare that with the CPX2 that I've got. So seeing this spring kit that was offered, I said, well, why don't I try to get the CPX2 running reliably again so I can do a good range review maybe if the DVG-1 comes out and I find one for a decent price and I pick one of those up, I can do that. And then looking at it, it's also supposed to be a lighter trigger pull and make the CPX1, CPX2 guns a lot easier to shoot. Now, I never minded the trigger pull. About an 8-pound trigger pull, I think, is what they came with, double action only. I never thought that was too bad. If you shoot double action revolvers, they're usually 10 pounds or so. Some of them. It depends on the gun, obviously. Some are a little less than that. But, you know, the trigger never felt all that bad to me. But I thought, well, you know, it's not a carry gun anymore. It's not one I'm going to shoot very often at all as it is now. So why not see what I can do to it? Why not buy this trigger kit, throw it in this gun, see what it does, and just test it out and maybe do a video with it just to, you know, just to show it off, just to say, hey, here it is, you know. So why not? I guess that's really the whole point. Why not? I've got the gun. It's not doing me any good just sitting in the safe, so why not get it out, try to do something with it, make a video with it, and then maybe when this DVG1 becomes available, because I know they're out on the market now, I just haven't seen one, but once it becomes available and I get a hold of one of those, I can do a comparison. Not just a comparison of the DVG1 to the stock CPX2, but to one that even has a trigger that's been reduced in trigger pull. And we can see how they stack up, because they're practically, I believe, the same gun except for the trigger system on them. I could be wrong. I think there's something else called the quad lock system or something on them now, which may make them more accurate or something. But you know, if I can compare the two together head to head and see which one I shoot better, maybe that'll make an interesting video. So anyway, I've got the spring kit here, I've got the gun here, so I thought I'd make a video showing you the teardown on this SCCY and putting those springs in, and then maybe we'll even maybe shoot a little bit just to see how it works out after I get the springs put in. So why don't we get over here to the table here, and we'll get started on putting these springs in. Okay, I've got the SCCY CPX2 here on the table, and I'm ready to start installing our Carbo spring kit here for the trigger. It's actually supposed to lower the trigger pull by half, so that's a pretty bold statement there, especially when a lot of times you do that with double action guns. And what you end up doing is getting light primer strikes, but they claim it won't, so I guess we'll see after we get it in if it actually does what they say or not. So let's go ahead and get started here. The first thing we got to do is just field strip the gun, which with the SCCY you just lock it back. It's kind of like that Ruger. You pull the takedown pin out, just like with the Ruger. Very similar to the Ruger in some ways. You know, they're both hammer-fired guns. The Ruger, the original LCP, was double action only. The LCP2 that I took down in that previous video is one that the hammer was pre-cocked, but still very similar in a lot of ways. All right, now that we've got this apart here, we've got a spring for the hammer spring, the mainspring, that's right back in here. We have got the trigger return spring, which is on this side of the trigger pack in here. And then we've also got a firing pin spring, which is in the slide here. So let's start with the firing pin spring, I guess. Let's just take this apart, take our recoil spring and guide rod out, take the barrel out because we don't need those. What we need is actually this part right here that has the firing pin in it. And the firing pin is in this slot right here. You can see the back of the firing pin sticking out there. And get me a punch here. When you push in on this back part right here, it goes in. There's a spring inside that pushes it back out, and that's the spring we're going to be replacing here. And what you have is you have a roll pin right there, and that roll pin holds the extractor in. And then underneath that, the extractor actually holds in a pin that has a spring on it that goes in and holds the firing pin in. So we have to take the pin out, take the extractor out, then we can take the pin and the spring out that holds the firing pin and the firing pin spring in. So let's get started with that. I believe that one's a little big. Oh, no wonder my punches got mixed up on me there. I thought I had the 564. I thought I went down one size and I went down two. There's where our problem is. All right. You know what, I think actually may have to push in on that. And push it in from that way, and I can hold it. Yeah, I think that worked. Let's see if that's enough. Yep, there we go. Extractor just came out. There's the little spring that comes out as well. And there's a little plunger in there too. Now then, there it goes. So now I've got the little pin out. Got that out. And now our firing pin is falling out. Let me look down in there. See if it's still in there. And it is. It's still in there. There it goes. All right. Now we've got the firing pin spring out. We can get our carbo replacement out and put it on instead. Alright. Of course, this has got to be in that position to the side, because that's the side where this is. So that goes in from, this little pin goes in from this side of the slide and goes into the recess right there. So this recess has got to be to that side for it to work. So we'll make sure you put it in with that orientation. Alright. Now we need to put our little stopper back in there. Get it down in there. And we'll need to push this kind of went down in there. The bigger one here. There we go. I think I've got her captured now. Alright, now we get this little spring back over the top of it. The extractor back into place here now. I'm having so much trouble holding on to it and getting it set so I can get this punch down on it. I'm going to use this C-clamp to help me out a little bit here. Well, it is down in there. Okay, I can put the C-clamp away now. Now I can put the slide away. Just go ahead and put the barrel back in there. That ended up being a lot more trouble than it was worth. I've only taken that apart once or twice, but it's been a long time since I've done that. All right, now the frame. Now I have taken the frame apart quite a few times, so I have a little bit better feeling about it. Go ahead and release the mainspring here. I'll drive these pins out. This front pin's been driven out so many times that it just practically falls out now. I may not even have to use a punch, use a hammer. It just falls out. Because the frame has been stretched so much from it being taken in and out. Back one still got a little bit more tension to it. Alright, those are out. Now everything should just pop right out, and it does. Alright, this spring right here is one of the ones we're going to be changing out. That's the trigger return spring. That's the trigger bar. This is your release, obviously, right here, with your retaining spring right here. Your trigger, obviously, that's your mainspring. So let's start with the front here. We'll need to take this off right here. Just take that off. Come on. It's just hooked on over there. Right there, if I can just get it off of that. Yeah. There it goes. Need to take my trigger bar off. And that fish feeds through the trigger bar there. Alright, so that whole thing is out. Now the trigger retaining pin here has to be driven out. I'll drive from this side here. Trigger's out. That's out. There's our spring right there we've got to get out. So there's a little pin right in there that has to be slid out. I need something really tiny to push it out with. Alright, maybe that got it going enough. This will get the rest of the way out now. Whew. It finally came out. All right. I never got that thing out. Now I'm going to try to push this thing back in. Now then. Alright, that is back in now. So we'll put this one over here with this. Now we just got to get this mainspring out. So that comes out there. We'll have to drag this thing right here out too. That's the size I need right there. There we go. There's that pin. That's off. This all comes out now. That should just come off that now. All right, now we got to get our mainspring here. I think they're identical. I don't think there's any difference between them. So this down in here. All right, that's in. Put that back down through there. That's what I'm looking for right there. Now trying to get the trigger line back up here. There we go. Just took a little bit of finagling to get it there. So this goes back in like this. All right, that is back in. This is really not hard, it's just kind of tedious. Probably not very interesting to watch though, I will admit that. So we may have to abbreviate some of this. I'll wrap this back around, stick it back through the trigger bar here. Reset the trigger bar on the stud. All right, that side is complete. Side here, we got to put our slide stop back on. Get a little screwdriver here. Pull up on that pin a little bit to get it set in place. Yeah, slide stops back on. Bars in place. All right, I think everything is back together. Still Still worried about that slide a little bit though. That extractor, I'm not sure if that went on right or not. I'm hoping so. That roll pin gave me a fit on that. Alright. Go ahead and put these pins back in here. Front one is pretty easy. It just slides in there all on its own. Push this in just a hair more. Okay guys, we have the SCCY CPX2 completely reassembled. We got all the new springs from Carbo installed, and now all that's left is to take it out on the range and just test it out and see how it does. And then hopefully at some point maybe we'll be able to get one of the DVG ones that they've come out with, one of the striker fire guns to kind of compare it with, or maybe even another CPX2, maybe a new one, to see if they're, you know, the same as they were when I bought this one, because this one is 7-8 years old, as I said earlier. So maybe they're a little different now, or we can test the factory trigger compared to this one with the trigger kit installed as well. So two different options we could look at doing, but first we've got to get this one out to the range and see how it does. So why don't we go out there and do that now. All right, guys, we're out here on the range now. Going to shoot just a little bit with the SCCY CPX2. I'm not going to put a ton of rounds downrange with this one. I've got one box of American Eagle. I believe it liked the American Eagle. I mentioned earlier it was somewhat ammo sensitive, and some brands it didn't like, but I believe it liked the American Eagle, so I'm going to use it. And I've got a little bit left of this Cellier and Below, or Sellers and Bellet, that we used with the Glock 19 video, and I'm going to finish up that box as well. So it's a little bit over a box, about a box and a third or so of ammo we'll put down range just to test it out and make sure it shoots all right, make sure we get good primer ignition, and that our trigger reset is working, because that was an issue I had with the old spring. The original spring had gotten weak, and to be honest, with this new spring it doesn't feel a whole lot different. This is a less powerful trigger return spring anyway, so it doesn't feel much different than the way that weakened spring felt. So the trigger reset's really going to be something I'm interested in seeing how that does. So I've got a couple of mags loaded up here, and if you want to look on my channel, the very first video I ever posted was posted around 7 years ago or so. Back in, I think, 2015, I posted a video about loading 11 rounds in a SCCY CPX2 magazine. And I was having an argument with someone on a forum one day, and I was telling them you can load 11 in these magazines, and they were like, no, you can't. And I said, well, I do it all the time. They said, well, if you're forcing that 11th round in there, then you're going to damage your magazine. You're compressing the springs too much. And I said, how am I compressing them too much? How am I, you know, using too much force if I can just do it with my thumb easily? It's not like I'm having to use a loader to do this. And so I made a video just showing me putting 11 in there with ease with my fingers. And so that was kind of the start of the channel, though I didn't really start the channel at that time. I waited 6 years or whatever it was to even start putting videos up after that. But that was kind of what I started my YouTube channel for, I guess you could say. That was when I created the account first, because I was looking for some way to make a video and share it, and I couldn't figure out how to just send a video on a Facebook group or whatever. So I started up the YouTube channel and posted a link. So that's kind of how that all came about. That's why I just left that video up there, just for the sake of nostalgia, I guess you could say. But let's shoot a little bit of this ammo here and see if I can hit anything, see how this trigger does. I mean, this is a self-defense gun. From my memory, I haven't shot this gun in 4 years, probably, at least, if not 5. I remember being fairly good with this gun because I shoot double action revolvers, so I think I was okay with it. You know, it's self-defense distances. You know, I was pretty good with it, but you know, I wasn't really practicing with it at 25 yards like I shoot at here. But let's just see what we can do with it. I'm not 100% familiar with this gun anymore. You know, it's been a long time, so I'm gonna be rusty with it. We'll see what I can do. We'll just shoot a few rounds here and just see how it does, see how the trigger does, see if it resets, make sure we have reliable ignition. Here we go. Just shooting a few rounds here. And the trigger did not reset. Trigger did not reset. Reset that time, but really slowly. I had a light primer strike, but of course I have double strike capability with this gun, so I just pulled the trigger again. It was really a slow reset that time. It hung up for a second, but then I'm not sure where to go with this gun. Light primer strike, try it again. Well, I can't hit that 10-inch plate at all. I just lost some brass down my overalls too. Let's see on the Cowboy where we're going here. Light primer strike. Light primer strike. Finally went off after just pulling it multiple times. Yeah, this is not going to work. Light primer strike. I mean, sorry, the trigger did not reset. And that's all of that magazine. So we're having serious problems here with that kit, with this gun especially. And you know, this gun has had a lot of rounds through it. I hate to say it's wore out, because most guns with 3,000 or 4,000 rounds through them would not be even close to wore out. But I mean, this one, I mean, the pins are wanting to slide out of it right now. I just don't want to bash Sky. I don't want to put down a budget firearm. I don't want to be negative, but I just got the feeling this gun really wasn't designed for long-term longevity, right? To be around a long time. It's just an inexpensive gun for people who need an inexpensive gun, who aren't probably going to put several thousand rounds down range with it. But you know, I've had reports of people talking about how they've shot it for years and it's been their carry gun and it's the greatest gun on earth. And I mean, that just hasn't been my experience. Of course, you know, this is just a sample size of one, you know, the only one I've ever had, which is why I thought seriously about getting another one and seeing how a different one does compared to this one. If maybe I just got a really bad lemon, you know. Well, let's try another one, see if it does any better after we get a few rounds to it. See if I can figure out where to hold. Let it reset, but it hung up. Let it reset that time. I don't know where it's going. You hold the other side. You hold lower. That's what it is. You have to take a... You have to take a really low 6 o'clock hold, is what I'm having to do. Yeah, missed all those. But that's what it is. Apparently it was, of course I've just switched over to American Eagle. I've shot all the Cellier and below now, so I'm on American Eagle now. So let's try it one more time. The trigger reset started doing a little bit better. Maybe it just needed to get some time in or something. I don't know. Maybe it just hadn't been shot in so long. It just needed those surfaces to be worked over a little bit with some activity. They just need to slide across one another a little bit to learn how to do it again. I don't know, but we'll shoot a few more. We'll keep trying. Maybe I can figure out how to hit with it. We try again. Now let's hold it up a little bit. That looks like the American Eagle's point of impact is a little bit closer to point of aim. I'm not having to hold down way low now.
trigger reset is doing better though. Huh. Yeah, it is still a low hold though. That's some wishful thinking going after that 4-inch plate there. I hit the plate 35 once. We got about 2 more mags worth here, I think, or so. Maybe a little over. So let's load her up again, do a little bit more shooting. It's doing better. It's starting to reset now. It's still not as strong a reset as I'd like. It's a slow reset. I'm not going to rapid fire this gun. I mean, I'm just not going to be able to, because the trigger is returning so slowly that there's no way I could shoot it very fast at all. And that's the downside to that. They're trying to make the trigger as light as possible, and they're, you know, the trigger from the factory on these is supposed to be around 8 pounds or so, and they were trying to drop it down around 4 pounds, which, you know, 4 pounds on a striker fired gun would be a pretty light trigger. But since this is a double action only and it's a long trigger pull, even at 4 pounds you still got to pull the trigger a long way, so it's not really a safety issue. But in order to get that weight so far down, they had to cut back on the power of the trigger reset, which is what snaps it back into place. And you know, that's an issue to me. And personally, you know, I think I would rather have an original trigger return spring, even if I leave the lighter springs otherwise. But some of those light primer strikes are a little bit concerning as well, though it's been doing a little bit better. I think most of those may have been with a cellular and below or ammo rather than federal. I don't know. Using different primers, maybe they're a little harder, but that would worry me, those light primer strikes. So I'm not sure if the lighter trigger pull is worth the sacrifice you're probably making here. That's just me though, you know. But I also shoot double action revolvers, and an 8-pound trigger on a double action gun to me doesn't seem that bad. That's not something that is a deal breaker for me. But I know some people, you know, don't really like that, and they have a lot of problems with the Skies because of the trigger pull, and it's too hard and too heavy. And rather than wanting to dry fire and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and build up the trigger finger strength, they want a solution that's an easier one to that heavy trigger pull, and so they look for things like this. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think this is the right solution. That's not saying anything bad about McCarbo's or M-Carbo's product. It's just a personal opinion I have. So, you know, I think what their product for the LCP2 was a great product. I think it really helped with that. It fixed that situation, and I'm very happy with that. And like I said, M-Carbo is providing a product that people want, right? They're providing what the public wants out of this gun. They want a light trigger, and you know, if that's what people want and they're providing that service, then, you know, more power to them. You can't fault them for that. You know, if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, will you make me this?" Sure, right? I mean, if you're someone who does service for the public, you make people what they want to buy, right? You can't fault them for that. But I just don't know that it's really the solution I would be looking for. But let's shoot these last couple mags and I'll let you guys go. I have to hold down a little bit, keep coming up on my hold, and I missed on the last round. I said I don't want to end on a miss, but I ain't got no more ammo, so I guess I'm just gonna have to finish this video up as a guy who missed the last round. It'll bring me bad luck or something, but no more ammo out here, so I guess I don't have a choice, do I? But anyway, appreciate you guys coming out, and you know, it wasn't exactly the result I was hoping for when I put the springs in, but you know, it is what it is. And you know, maybe that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for a Sky, you're looking for that lighter trigger pull, but it's not what I would recommend for it myself personally if you were going to buy a Sky. But with all the issues I had with the Sky, I don't know if I would recommend it or not. But like I said, I've only had this one example of the Sky, so you can't necessarily judge every single one of them by this one here. But just the same, you know, this is not a gun I'm ever going to carry again, and haven't in a very, very long time. So anyway, appreciate you coming out. God bless you. This is Preacher 357. Y'all take care.